Well, this is an extra special edition of PFTPM, one that had to happen so quickly I didn't have time to take a shower, or as some would say, attach my toupee. I checked with my wife before I came down. I said to her, I know you think I look ridiculous in a hat, but is this okay? And she said, who's going to see it? And I said, well, ideally, a few 100,000, but let's find out. And the joke's on her. I look ridiculous without a hat on. So let's get to it. The reason I'm sitting here with my PFT hat, which you can buy at profootballtalk.com if you'd like to get one, product placement, the Steelers reportedly plan to hire former Packers and Cowboys coach Mike McCarthy to be the successor to Mike Tomlin. As one source said, this is a Villanova-Georgetown level upset. And when you think about their history, dating back to the first Nixon administration, 1969, Chuck Noll, in his 30s, gets the job. Defensive coordinator who had never been a head coach before, keeps that job for 23 years, wins 4 Super Bowls. Then Bill Cowher, in his 30s, defensive coordinator, had never been a head coach, keeps that job for 15 years, goes to 2 Super Bowls and wins 1. Then Mike Tomlin, 19 years, in his 30s, defensive coordinator, never been a head coach before, wins a Super Bowl, goes to another. And the one that he lost to the guy who's now getting the job in Mike McCarthy. When I was poking around about this last weekend, one of the caveats that I picked up was, even though they have a formula, and it's a clear formula, even though they'd used it 3 times, it applied to 57 years. Defensive coach, no head coaching experience, get the right guy, and hope that he stays as long as possible. This time around, it's a guy who's been a head coach for 18 years, and he's 62. And look, I've argued this week with Chris. I've discussed it also with Michael Hawley. There is an ageism issue in the NFL. It's a young man's game, as some would say, presumably not out loud to a reporter, but that vibe is out there. The idea that a team that has consistently hired coaches in their 30s all of a sudden is hiring a guy in his 60s is a stunner. And the pivot from defense to offense. Now, this is what I was told, and I've tried to make this point on multiple different platforms. The Steelers recognize the game has changed dramatically in the 19 years since they hired their last head coach. It is skewed farther toward offense with an emphasis on player safety, specifically offensive player safety, although there have been some measures aimed at protecting defensive players. It's mainly been, and really the key has been, the rule regarding hits to the head and neck area of defenseless receivers. And the Steelers were at the epicenter of that debate. Ryan Clark at one point got fined, I think it was $40,000. And he said, I got praised in the film room by Mike Tomlin for this hit. Eventually, they had to put Mike Tomlin on the competition committee to get him to buy in to the changes the league was making culturally. So the Steelers, recognizing there's been this shift, and also really, since Ben Roethlisberger retired, what have they had by way of offense? It has struggled. It has sputtered. They fired Matt Canada a couple of years ago, and they have pivoted to this veteran quarterback approach after Kenny Pickett didn't work out. He was supposed to be obviously the successor to Roethlisberger. We had Justin Fields and Russell Wilson in 2024, Aaron Rodgers in 2025. And when the Steelers don't intend to bottom out, so they won't be in a position to draft a Terry Bradshaw or Ben Roethlisberger, they got to find somebody who can make something work with whatever they can find. Now, McCarthy has inherited good quarterback situations. He was there for the tail end of Brett Favre. He was there for almost all of Aaron Rodgers, a guy who was drafted a year before McCarthy was hired by the Green Bay Packers. And then when he went to Dallas, Dak Prescott was there. So the quarterback issue is still a real thing. And one of the crazy dots to connect here is the fact that Aaron Rodgers, who will be a free agent in March, could stick around and reunite with McCarthy. Who knows? Maybe their time apart has caused fences to be mended. There was some great reporting from Tyler Dunn then with BleacherReport.com about friction between McCarthy and Rodgers in the latter years of their time in Green Bay. So who knows how that'll play out? That's just another little wrinkle that could get very interesting between the Steelers, McCarthy, and Aaron Rodgers. But quarterback is going to be the first order of business. And unlike his 2 prior stops, he isn't walking through the door with the quarterback situation already under control. They're going to have to find somebody in the draft, free agency, trade, however. But that's going to be a big part of this. Regardless, it's a new day in Pittsburgh, and I'm already getting questions from Steelers fans I know that are framed as, why are they doing this? And not in a good way. So there's going to be a PR job to be done here to get the fans to accept this dramatic change in their hiring practices. And we'll see if it works. Ultimately, what's going to matter is what happens on the field. Can they win right away? Can they pursue another championship? Can they win a postseason game for the first time since 2016? The pressure is going to be on a Pittsburgh native who presumably grew up wanting to coach the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a good story from that perspective. It's just a stunning story from the perspective of the Steelers doing something we have not seen them do in our lifetimes. Now, remember this. 1969 wasn't the first time they fired or hired a head coach. They did both in January of that year. Before that, they had a revolving door as much as any team. Are they going to go back to those days? How long will McCarthy be there? And, hey, he's 62. Does anyone really think he's going to be there 15 years like Cowher was, 19 years like Tomlin was, 23 years like Chuck Noll was? So they're breaking from tradition. And we saw that last year with their player acquisition strategies, making the trade and paying market value to DK Metcalf, who had never played for them before, waiting around 2 months for Aaron Rodgers to decide he was going to join the team, the trade for Jalen Ramsey not long before the start of the season. The Steelers have changed their ways. This is the latest change. Stunning, dramatic, and really a 180 from what we'd seen from the Steelers in 1969, in 1992, and in 2007. So now, 2026, a new day, a new dawn, and we'll see if for the Steelers, it's a different result if and when they get to the playoffs, whether or not they can get a playoff win and maybe get back to the Super Bowl for the first time since Mike McCarthy beat them in Dallas. Man, all three threads for McCarthy come together in one game, Super Bowl 45. In Dallas, coached the Cowboys, coached the Packers to the win over the Steelers. The McCarthy trifecta. We'll see what happens in Pittsburgh for him and the Steelers and whoever the quarterback may be. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.